Hey guys, welcome to Classy Nerd Talk. This is Andrewmeda coming at you with an MTGO video. Today I'm going to be playing Pauper, and I'm going to be playing a deck that has been named Acid Trip. The deck gets its name from the card Reality Acid, which is for 2 and a blue an enchantment that enchants a permanent that reads, when Reality Acid leaves the battlefield, enchanted permanent's controller sacrifices it. So what that allows us to do is just slap this onto any problem permanent, and then in 3 turns, because it has vanishing, whatever that permanent was goes away, no matter what it was. It could be a land, a creature, artifact, enchantment. If this were another format where there were planeswalkers, anything you want. But you know what? We don't have all the time in the world to wait around for 3 turns, so we're going to expedite that process a bit by using things like Core Skyfisher, which is a 2/3 with flying for 2 mana. Sounds great, right? But it has a drawback that we're going to abuse. That reads, when it enters the battlefield, return a permanent you control to its owner's hand. We have another card like that called Dreamstalker, who's a 1/5. He's got a big booty, but he does the same thing. When he enters the battlefield, he'll return a permanent you control to its owner's hand. So that's the linchpin of this deck, is we're going to be slapping Reality Acids onto our opponent's problem permanents, whatever they may be, and then using things like Core Skyfisher and Dreamstalker to bounce it back to our hand. Because Reality Acid says when it leaves the battlefield. Not when it's sacrificed or anything, just when it leaves for whatever reason. So we exploit those drawbacks on this card and close the game out with, the Skyfishers, because 2/3s on the game quick. But we also can generate value off of these things in case we don't have our Reality Acids. We can win in other ways too, which is why this deck is so cool. We have things like Seagate Oracle that allow us to dig for answers to whatever our opponent's doing, find our Reality Acids. They're also a 1/3, so they're good at blocking. And then we have good old Muldrifter, who's an all-star in Pauper. He's a 2/2 flyer for 5 mana, which seems steep, but when he enters the battlefield, you can draw 2 cards. And even if you have 3 mana and you just need cards, like right now, you can pay 2 and a blue to evoke him. So we can get value by bouncing these fellas back to our hand over and over and over again. And then we also have Heliod's Pilgrim, just so we can tutor up our auras. This is a 2 and a white for a 1/2. Not very impressive, but when it enters the battlefield, you can search your library for an aura card, reveal it, put it into your hand, and then shuffle your library. So that lets us get things like Faith's Fetters, because our deck is a little bit slower. We're more of like a mid-range, control-y type deck. So it gains us 4 life, and we put this on a permanent, and they can't activate any of its abilities at all, unless they're mana abilities. And if it's a creature, it can't attack or block. And we also have Hobble, which is cool because it draws you a card when it enters the battlefield, and does the same thing. And then we also have Journey to Nowhere, which is just a good catch-all answer. So, say we journey an early creature just to stop some of like the bleeding early on. Well, then they play a bigger threat, like a Gurmag Angler or an Ulamog's Crusher, something super spooky and terrifying. Well, we can just use our Core Skyfisher or our Dreamstalker to bounce that back to our hand, replay it, and get rid of the bigger threat. We can also do that on Lone Missionary to buy us some time. It's 2/1, so he can be on the beatdown plan, help us close out the game faster, but he also gains us 4 life. And then we also have things like Crystallization, which just acts as another catch-all removal spell. And then we have Spreading Seas for further disruption. So even if your opponent is on monocolor, say they're not really drawing a whole lot of lands, or they're playing Burn where they're really, really hungry and greedy for their red mana, we'll just make a bunch of their shit islands, and then suddenly they have a lot of trouble casting it. And this also has the added benefit of contripping. And we also run cards like Momentary Blink, which exiles target creature we control, then returns it to the battlefield under its owner's control. And this is essentially like having extra copies of whatever we need, because we have all these different creatures with enter the battlefield effects. So we can bounce our Lone Missionaries to gain life, Muldrifter to draw more cards, same with Seagate Oracle, or we can blink our Skyfisher and Dreamstalker to get our Reality Acids back to our hands. So we can use that as kind of like a combat trick too, where we could block in an unfavorable way, and then like blink our dude out, get value off the enter of the battlefield effect. And it's just, it's just utility. And we have Preordains. It's just a really good card for a blue mana. It gives us something to do on the first turn of the game. Helps us dig towards cards that we need. Mana base is stuff like Azorius Chancery, which there's 4 in this deck, which I feel like is a lot. We could probably go down to 3, but this works with some of the lands that we have, like Cabria Crossroads, which gains us 2 life, and Radiant Fountain, which gains us 2 life. Just stuff to prolong the game to keep us alive just a little bit longer till we can get our combo to go off and rob our opponent of any permanents they have. So sideboard is pretty cut and dry. Relic of Progenitus for decks that care about their graveyard. Curse of the Bloody Tome for grindier matchups where we're not going to be able to close the game out with beatdown because they have life gain or they have fog effects. or whatever. You know, this can just grind them out, make them mill everything. Counterspell and Dispel for the control matchups. We don't want our opponent countering our reality asses, because once they're in the graveyard, that's it, we don't have any more. Well, we got to try to win some other way. And that's difficult to do when we're not robbing our opponent of resources in win conditions. Circle of Protection Red, this is purely for burn. Burn's a really rough matchup because that deck is fast. It wants you to die quickly. And this deck needs a little bit of time to get settled in. Holy Light, this is a card that I didn't even know existed. For 2 and a white, it's an instant, and non-white creatures get -1/-1 till end of turn. I've used this against Affinity decks before, and then other decks that just have a lot of little weenies like Elves. It's amazing. Core Sanctifiers is just kind of a catch-all against troublesome artifact and enchantments. Plus, it's a 2/3, which is an excellent body. Dust to Dust, things that care about artifacts, decks like Affinity, awesome. For 3 mana, you hit 2, is 2 for 1. And then Battle Screech is just an all-around good card. It creates 2 1/1 white bird creature tokens with flying for 4 mana. Not too great, but it's good because it has Flashback, which is tap 3 untapped white creatures you control. And then you create 2 more bird tokens, so it fuels itself. So really you're getting 4 birds for 4 mana that have flying, and these can close out the game on their own. I know there's Pauper decks that use this as one of their win conditions. And then also it can buy us time by chump blocking repeatedly. All around good card. So that's the deck. We're going to hop into some games now so we can see it in action. So I'll see you guys there.